Good. Always dancing. She looked weird today for some reason.
I have no idea why.
She has like a sunken-in face. Packaging, I think, or shipping. All right, guys, welcome. Today is Monday, and we're going to do another tutorial. So I have section down the middle, as you can see, and we've got something different on that side to this side. So just like before, we're going to do two variations, and today we're going to do concave layers. And we're going to do two variations, as in two different distributions of weight. One side's going to get heavier towards the front, and the other side's going to get heavier towards the back. So we're going to do a traditional round layer on one side and a triangular on the other. All right, let's do this. It's all you. Mm-hmm. All right, so let's talk about this. So the number one haircut in the world is probably round concave layers. That means it's lighter in the front and it gets heavier towards the back. And it's done one of two ways. We either take horizontal sections and lift everything up to the ceiling, and we cut short to long, right? If we can't reach it, we can do it a different way, and that is to work vertical diagonal back sections and pull the hair forward onto that face framing arch layer that you have.
Face is so weird.
Same haircut, done two different ways. Now, the only problem with this haircut is you've got to figure out and understand what's going on with the density of the hairline. So, as you can see, the hairline is much higher up in the front than it is in the back. So, when you're coming through and you're taking all that weight out of the front, you're removing so much weight out of the front and you're leaving the majority of it in the back, right? So that pushes it back. So shorter in the front, longer in the back, we call that round, but technically it's a mullet, right? Right? It's just a long mullet. So round layers, when you do them on longer, you're always going to be lighter in the front, heavier in the back. So that's going to leave this really heavy and very dense wherever your length is. So it's very difficult to get any form of movement or bounce or volume in that and get it to stay there, because literally you've got this phone book of density that will be at the bottom and in the back, right? So I want to show you something different and can kind of switch that up a little bit. So what I'm proposing to do is to work on a triangular layer. So I'm going to send the weight forward instead of backwards, right? And by doing that, you can see that the bone structure, or in this case, foam structure, right? The jawline is angled that way. The cheekbone's angled that way. The forehead, the nose, the lips, the chin, the neckline, and even the collarbone. So
We have a lot of comments on how it looks creepy.
Yeah, isn't your face creepy? Sorry, guys. Let me go get the other one. Let's look at the difference.
Yeah. And yes, we should call this me talks or me sessions.
See, this is what they usually look like. So she's got some like sunken inness right here. I don't know what's going on. Even the lipstick's a bit smudged. So like I said, we'll do triangular on one side and we'll do round on the other one. So let's get started on this one. So the sectioning, right? Every haircut I do is sectioned according to head shape. I don't section into a standard 4 sections and then go about the haircut, because that doesn't allow for head shape. So what I'm proposing to do here is work with that. So basically, if you notice, I've sectioned in the center of the crown, all the way down to the top of that mastoid right there. And then I've sectioned from the occipital, the higher point of the occipital, down, following that round of the head, down to the mastoid, which, guys, turns into the jawline. So all flowing through. And the reason I've done this, because I'm working with each round of the head. Now, most haircuts when we work with long hair start with the length, but I'm not going to start with the length. I'm actually going to start with the layer. So I'm going to start the inside first in this crown area. So that's where we'll go. So we'll leave that clipped away. Got any
Yes,
questions?
I am the official camera crew.
Yes, she's camera crew now. We've got her on the job. So, I talked about this a little bit the other day when we did the layered bob. Now we're just doing longer layers, but I've taken my section, and basically when you cut layers you're going to have to use elevation to do it. So that means you're going to have to cut the hair in your fingers. So there's two sides to my fingers. There's the inside and then there's the outside, and they're both different. Duh, right? Kind of common sense, that one. So if I cut hair on the inside of my fingers, the inside of my fingers is flat. So if we go closer to the head with a flat line, look what the comb does, right? It means some hair is shorter and some hair is longer. That's what's known as concave. Some people use the term flat layers, that's still concave. So if I use the inside of the fingers, I'm going to create more of a concave layer. I'm going to have shorter hair and longer hair throughout that dimension. So that's going to restrict a lot of movement. See, remember, layering is a removal of weight. So weight has two sides. Weight can be bigger and weight can be skinnier, right? So in layers, we've got a bigger layer and then we've got a skinnier layer. Concave is the skinny layer. It's like liposuction. Takes the guts out, but leaves everything else. Convex layers follows the head shape. So it follows that curvature that you see. And that is the bigger layer. See, that's convex, that's concave. So I take out all that excess weight. So if I'm wanting more bounce and more volume, I'm going to go with convex. So that's what I want to achieve. But to do that, I cannot use the inside of my fingers. Because this is flat, if I keep cutting flat, I'm just going to create a stop sign, right? Corners everywhere. So I'm not going to use the inside. I'm going to use the outside because they're curved. And I can now copy the head shape.
Is it better to start with layers?
It just depends on what you're doing. The reason why I'm not starting with the outline is because if I start with the outline, I make this entire haircut all about that length, that line. So if I put a solid outline in, I'm going to layer it. Layering removes weight, so it makes things softer and weaker. So it'll start to break up that line. So I actually want to keep this length that this mannequin has, and I want it to be softer because the shoulder breaks up the solidness of a haircut. So when we start working in this kind of length, like I did the layered bob the other day, then it's all about protecting that length. Down here, I want it softer. So that's why I'm going to start with the layer and not the outline. Guys, this is perfect for those clients that think layers come in ones and twos. I want one layer here, second one here. So, body position, where do I stand? I can stand here with my fingertips down, or I can stand over where you are, me, and I can work fingertips pointed up. They're both going to do slightly different things. That's because one you're starting from the bottom, one you're starting from the top. So looking at how I stand, which is upright, and how my arm moves, it comes over, right? If I was laid down, it would be much easier, but I'm not. I'm stood upright. So what will happen is I'll cut this shorter and I'll leave that longer. That's concave. So I want convex, I don't want concave. So I won't stand here. I'm going to switch to the other side. So regardless of what side of the head I would be working on, I would stand with my fingertips pointed down because now I can control the layer that I cut. If I start from the top down, it's too late. It's already concaved. So let's do this.
Is the deciding factor whether using convex or flat layer what you are going to do with the top, or is a different effect you will get from each of them?
The difference, guys, concave is skinny, doesn't move as much. Convex is bigger, wider, it bounces. That's the difference between the two. So, combing that hair straight out from the head. Straight out from the head means 90 degrees. So that's what I'm doing. And I'm going to cut a layer that follows the vertical contour of the head shape. So I'm going to follow this crown. Now, look at this hair through here. That's not 90 degrees, that's been brought below. So if I come through 90, I can now see that excess weight. This is the stuff that you're point cutting off at the end. I'd rather build the house perfect first and not realize that I messed it up at the end.
In this section, can you show us which elevation is layering and which is graduation?
Graduation, it would be all about the angle that you use. See, I'm working vertically, so it's not really all about elevation when it comes to graduation. Graduation is a build-up of weight, so it works against the head shape. If you watch our video that we did yesterday, you'll see what graduation is. Today we're removing weight, we're layering, but we're protecting length. So I've moved to my second section. So now we're thinking about what's going on this way, right? So I know I want it to get heavier in the front. So I'm going to pull away from what I want to keep. The most amount of over direction is to bring everything into number one, right? What's going to happen if I do that? She's going to want to speak to the manager.
Oh, yeah.
So,
because the bell goes in the center. I remember
and then
that.
the least amount of over direction is to bring 2 into 1, 3 into 2, 4 into 3, and so on and so on. But that's going to take me past the round of the head. So that's going to, I'm going to start to lose stuff around here. So I'm going to use an over direction that works straight back behind the mannequin. So not into the middle. Come over here. Mm-hmm. You'll see it better. So not into the middle, guys. Just straight back, straight back, straight back, straight back. Whatever reaches.
Are you using cutting lotion?
No. Not a real big cutting lotion fan. Just plain water. I don't want the hair to be slippy. So again, making sure I work through 90 degrees. Now look where I'm stood. I'm actually stood at the line that I'm cutting. I'm not stood over here and I'm stretching away. See, when I do that, I have no idea where I'm sending it to. Whereas if I'm stood right where the cutting line is and it's in between my shoulders, picture you've got like a TV and you're carrying it. That's where you want to cut hair. So I get rid of number 1. And I'm going to use number 2 as a guide for number 3. Now the size of my sections is very important because my haircut is, my guide is traveling right now. So it doesn't want to be any thicker than one of the fingers that you use to hold the hair with. It doesn't want to be the thickness of 2, that's for sure.
Would you adjust your sectioning if your client had a crazy growth pattern in the crown, or adjust your tension?
I'd adjust my tension.
Concave square, question mark?
Nope, triangular. Square has 4 corners, remember?
More viewers today.
So straight back. There's my guide. Notice when I comb the hair, guys, I'm never combing the guide. I'm always combing what I'm about to cut. If I comb what I've already cut, i.e. the guide, I'll push the guide towards you and it will be shorter. So when you cross-check, it'll be longer in the middle and get shorter towards the front. That's what's known as a mistake. I want it to get longer. So look at my layers now, my shape. We're getting heavier towards the front. I've reached the natural round of the head. So right now, that is my stationary guideline because this is the side. So I can just condense this now and bring it back.
Is it true 90 at the higher part?
It's 90 degrees from where I'm cutting off the head shape.
And then can we get a recap?
Can you get a recap?
Yes.
Already? Yeah, of course. So guys, we're doing 2 different forms of concave layering. We're working triangular on this side. That means it gets heavier towards the front, as you can see when those layers fall. And then on this side, we're going to do a round. So it's going to be lighter in the front, heavier towards the back. So we're going to do 2 opposing distributions of weight so you can see the difference. The number 1 haircut in the world is a round layer. It's actually a big long mullet. And if you don't do it on the right face and the right person, it's not very complimentary at all. Remember, round is like opening up the face. So if you put a round shape on someone, you've got to make sure this looks good. And you've got to make sure that they don't have more than one of these, because that's what you're going to see.
Well, we're not going to talk about her
No, we'll
face.
talk about that later.
Talk about that.
All right, so cross check. So one of the most important things is understanding how to cross check. Cross check at the same elevation you cut it at. Right? See, that's straight out from the head where it was cut. Most people will just pull it straight back and have a look at it. But look at this line here, me. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Rubbish, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if I bring it to where it was technically cut, there you go. Exactly what I'm looking for.
Would you say this concave haircut is what the Rachel is based on?
No, not at all. This is trying to get away from the Rachel. So let's do the other side, this underneath now. But I'm going to need you to go back over here, like so. Right there. Bit of water on this. How's everyone doing? Enjoying it? Got any questions?
Me, do you want to be a hairdresser? I get this every time. I would like to. I would.
That's funny. So, connecting to the underneath. Same sectioning. Vertical all the way through. Now you've noticed that I've switched positions. I'm stood over here now. My fingertips are going to be pointed up. Whereas when I work the crown area, I work fingertips down. And the reason why I'm not going to stand over here and do this and work from the outline is 9 times out of 10 I'll cut that shorter. And again, look how your arm moves. How you actually physically move to cut that. So I'll actually cut more rounded through there. So I'll get this convex layer through the crown, and then I'll get this other bubble kind of layer below it. So that's going to look like a capital B, isn't it? Or a pregnant lady. Imagine how that falls, all that roundness within the haircut. You're going to have a divot right through the middle of it. Then it's going to look like Rachel, and that's not what we're looking for. So I'm going to switch my position to my fingertips pointed up. Go stand there. See, now I can control the length with my elbow. So much more control. My palm doesn't face the head, the palm faces me. Not you, me. And I continue. So I've now turned this convex layer into a concave. But it's not that kind of concave. I've got some shape to it all the way through. Some width. Concave is a very aggressive form of layering, like I said before. It's like liposuction. Same thing. Always combing what I'm about to cut, not what I've already cut. So if I was working in the salon, which is American for salon, for you Brits, I'd have the mirror
I thought
right
that
here.
was just you that said that.
So that I could see my elevation, my overdirection, sorry. Elevation. Everything's straight back.
What kind of hair type would you say this worked best on?
Most hair types is really good. I probably would avoid doing something like this on super curly hair, because remember, curly hair takes on the shape, whatever you cut out here, not exactly what it's going to do when it falls, like so. Doesn't have as much movement, curly hair, I don't think, when you do things like this. So straight to wavy hair is really good. As you can see, the mannequin I use has wave. Alright, so that's the back and the underneath. So right now what we've got, guys, another recap, is I first put in the crown area and I cut convex layer, 90 degrees, over directed everything straight back, and then I turned that into a concave layer, working from the crown down to the outline, everything straight back again. And now we're going to work into this front area. So there's a couple of options. I can use vertical sections, and I'll have to over direct to continue getting longer and heavier towards the front. Or I can use horizontal sections. I can use elevation and finger angle to continue that line all the way through. Here's the difference. If I work vertically, I've only got so much space to pull this hair back. So I'm only guaranteed a certain length. Like, one of the worst things is cutting this kind of a haircut and getting to the apex and realizing it's too short. So I'm going to cut it horizontally so I can actually basically just do what I did in the back. I'll extend that line from the crown forward to the front hairline.
How long do you book haircuts in the salon?
I'm an educator, so I predominantly teach. I've always taught my entire career. I was trained to be a teacher from the beginning. I do own a salon as of now, depending on coronavirus. We'll see what happens. And I only have, let's say, 5 or 6 clients. I travel around the country, around the world, teaching most of the time. So if I do a haircut, generally an hour to an hour and a half is good for me.
What is the best body position to make sure you are pulling the hair straight to the wall behind?
It's all about your feet. So when I was cutting the back area there, guys, it's all about what I do with these things. See, you have to realize you do cut hair with your hands, but your hands are attached to your arms. Your arms are attached to your body, and your body is always governed by what these do. So if these are not in the right place, i.e. right here, this is in the right spot, I'm not going to send the hair straight back, am I? If I pull my foot over here, I'm now going to pull the hair too far over. If my foot's too over here, I'm not going to over direct enough. So your feet control what you do. Now what can help you is if you have a mirror and you put it right there. So that means not having your client face the mirror. You have to remember, the mirror is not for them, it's for you. The hand mirror is for them.
And the salon is called The Factory.
It is.
Somebody asked.
So I'm continuing that line all the way through to the front. So essentially what I'm doing is the same thing through the front as what I did in the back. Now this becomes a problem area, what I'm doing right now. And that is because people tend to always use the elbow, right? Well, if I use the elbow, that's my limit. So what we're seeing is we're seeing a lot of people do this. They bring it up, and then they bring it over here, and they think they've locked it. You know, I've had so many people over the years tell me, no, it's definitely locked. I'm like, it's physically impossible to lock it because you're organic and the hair's organic. You'd have to be like an air machine in a factory to lock yourself in on this. So here's what I do. I don't make it about the elbow. I drop the elbow. See, look, there's my limit. But if I drop the elbow, I can now go up even further. So another hack. Continuing all the way down. See, I'm using that mirror over there just to make sure that I'm pulling it to the right place. It's probably too far for them.
Do you zoom?
If you use your mirror, your haircuts will be better than they were before you did use the mirror.
Is the top being over-directed to the middle or straight up to the ceiling?
Straight up to the ceiling. So if I brought this straight back in the back, right, then if I bring everything here in the middle, there's not going to be any connection, right? So I've got to do the same thing here as what I've done here. See, guys, what you start to realize once you start experimenting is that this part of the head shape is identical to this. It's the same thing. We could do this. And I could be doing the back. Remember I just did that? See, understand the terrain. Understand the landscape so that you can actually create a really good haircut to work with it. See, the apex is connected to the occipital. They're the same thing. They're the same round as you move from the hairline. If you move out from the occipital, you get that mastoid parietal ridge, right? Same thing right here. So when I was in my experimental years, let's take graduated bob, right? We did it yesterday. So we do it on this side, right? Like normal. One day I was like, okay, well, why don't I pretend that that's the occipital bone and I'll do a graduated bob from this angle. I didn't get a graduated bob, but I got a shag, round concave layers, pretty simple. So understanding things like that really helps me in planning the haircut.
And yes, sometimes he does go to the UK and he does stuff. He does education.
I do, yeah. Sometimes I go to my original home. See, now look at that. We've got that shape in there now. It's getting heavier towards the front. Essentially, it's just like a lob, but it's obviously not a bob because a bob is above the shoulders. So it's a good option for the longer kind of situation.
Is a lob a long bob?
That's basically what it is, long bob or layered bob.
Lob.
So, I want to show you something. When I comb this down, I'm going to see this gap. Remember, I didn't do any outline to begin with. And the reason for that is because it's long hair. I want it to be softer on the edge. Again, if I put a line in, then it's going to start swinging. Layers are supposed to bounce and move. So if I put a solid line in, I will restrict that movement. It'll only tend to move backwards and forwards instead of up and down. So let's comb this down and look now. See, what you'll notice is it's doing this. See that right there? There's like a little hole. Now generally people have shoulders, so that's where the shoulder would be. See, there's a reason why that is like that, because the shoulder is directly below it, so that the density in the front sits in the front and this sits in the back. To me, that's all about suitability, but you've got to know that. Most people are going to come in and go bloop, and then they're going to try and break that up with the wand afterwards. So I'm just doing it now.
And yes, I am filming. I am his daughter. Yes. Also,
you can speak properly though, you know, like no.
Oh, you really? Really?
All right. Everyone cool? Yeah.
There's one question.
Yeah.
Are there any other educators that inspire you?
Yeah, there's lots of people that inspire me. I come from a very very strong team at Vidal Sassoon that I worked with. Gerard Scarpesi, Tracy Sarkisic, Julian Perlingiro, Stephen Moody, who else was there? John Guest. Loads of people, very strong, very great haircutters. Not a colourist, so I'm not going to recommend that because I don't really know. I know good colourists though. Lupe Voss, Lucy Doughty was an amazing colourist. She kind of does more editorial stuff now. My peers and my friends are really good educators. Talking Ira Pope Sage, Anthony Edge. We've got Clinton Cuts hair out there, Lucas Downey. There's tons more. I'll get to it. Jacob Kahn, he's a good kid.
So if someone had wicked long hair and wanted 6 inches cut off, would you do the perimeter first or the layers?
Yeah, if you know that they're going to have quite a lot to do, you can do that. But you can also cut the perimeter afterwards. You don't have to cut a solid line in here, guys. You could come in afterwards and just point cut or slice it off the edge. So, yeah. So let's do the round side, right? Yeah. So, the one thing I don't really like about just taking sections that are horizontal and lifting everything up and cutting the top off, that corner off, is it really doesn't create the most fluid round layer. It doesn't follow or allow for head shape. It just, you work some generic thing over the top of it. You then blow dry and style the haircut, which they can't do. And then you come through and you just start getting rid of the stuff you don't like. I'd rather build it perfect first than do that. So my sectioning is from the apex, because that is the first round of the head from the hairline. Round is lighter in the front, so I must start there, right? And I've worked that down to the mastoid, right at the back of it, right there. So you can see that is a vertical diagonal back section. So I'm going to start there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to pivot sections. Yes?
What did you mean when you said that you were trained to teach?
What did I mean? I went to school at Vidal Sassoon Academy in Santa Monica. And then within like the first week, I realized that I wanted to be a Vidal Sassoon teacher. And so when I graduated, they hired me at the academy as an assistant and they trained me to become a teacher. So I was very lucky and very fortunate. Maybe some skill there, but that took a while. So, like I said, I'm going to pivot these sections around. So that right there, on top of the apex, that's like the middle of a clock. And I'm going to tick-tock around the head like so, pivoting all the way around. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to push the hair forward into the previous section. I'm going to pull away from what I want to keep, or I'm going to push away from what I want to keep in this case. So my first section, let's comb this through, right from that point, so you can see. It's like a mini triangle. So I'm just going to pivot all those sections all the way around. I'm going to use the length from the other side of the apex as a guide, so we can see a bit of a difference. So yeah, trained to be a teacher. Became a teacher when I was like 19, 20 years old. And I'm almost 44. So I'm cutting a line that follows the head shape, guys. So look at where my fingers are on me. So that line right there, guys, is actually doing what the head shape does. So that's what makes it all about suitability, because this is different on everybody and you're going to copy it. Just like I copied the crown on the previous side. I'm not putting some generic line over it and then hoping it does something. My next section, pivot out a little bit more. Nice and clean. And I'm going to push number 2 into number 1. So technically that is being elevated above 90 degrees. So this is what's creating the concave layer.
Does this sectioning pattern apply to every haircut?
No. Because then you'd be doing the same haircut all day, wouldn't you? This is a really good way to get around layer. And right now we're working on that kind of, this kind of length, getting longer. So you can see now by me pushing that forward into the previous or up into the previous, I'm starting to get that concave through the front, shorter to longer.
Why don't you stand on the opposite side of the head?
Because I want to be right where I'm cutting. If I stand on the opposite side, I'm going to start to maybe pull this too much. So I like to be right onto this. So I get rid of number 1 and I use number 2 for number 3. Now the elevation that I used in number 1 didn't go below this part because that's where the hairline is, right? So I'll never drop below that with my elevation as I move around the head.
Okay, so somebody says that I always bring the session down because I'm 5 feet tall. Any recommendations of what to do instead?
Well, I showed you that. Drop your elbow so that you could lift a bit higher. Sometimes, obviously, if you're, you know, what were you saying? You were 5 foot? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to be quite difficult, isn't it? So you probably have to kind of come up with a different solution for that for yourself. Just cut bobs. Much easier. Just kidding. But see, what I don't do is I don't do that. I drop my elbow so that I can actually reach it. If I start doing that, then I can't reach it. So let's get back to this. So I'm just pivoting around the head. See where I'm at right now? Just gradually moving, pivoting around the head. So the pivoting is what makes it truly round, because pivoting is radial. That's what round is.
Your fingers always point inwards towards the pivot point?
Yes. So again, forward into the previous. So you can see that over direction now. And just cutting that line. So now we've got to cross-check this. And to cross-check is to check the opposite dimension, is to check your movement, all right? Because you can see what you did in your fingers, so you know what that looks like. Now, whenever you pivot, you technically use every form of sectioning, so that's horizontal diagonal all the way through to vertical diagonal, right? So I already know what it looks like this way, and I already know what it looks like this way because I've pivoted around. So to cross-check something that's pivoted, you have to work the opposite way. So let's pretend that I've got ink on these teeth of my comb, right? Now, if I move the way the hair was done, pivoted, what kind of line would that draw on the head? Curved, exactly, round.
Round's like round.
So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a rounded section through here, and now I'm going to be able to see the movement. And what I'm looking for when I look at this line is I want it to be getting heavier towards the back. And it is. So I'll just check through that. So just a really nice, fluid, round layer. So this came about when I left Sassoon. When I left Vidal Sassoon, I went to work for Paul Mitchell, and I was asked to create their cutting system. And this was the haircut that I put on there.
We have a question about the salon.
Yeah.
How many stylists work there?
We have 7 chair salon.
And how do you keep the shape round if you over direct to the previous? Is it because of the pivoting sections?
So if I push forward, it gets heavier towards the back. Remember, pull away from what you want to keep, guys. If I want hair to get heavier in the front, I pull it backwards. If I want hair to get hairy in the back, I pull it forwards. If I want hair to get heavy at the top, I pull it down. If I want hair to get heavy at the bottom, I pull the hair up, right? And haircut is 3-dimensional, so when you're moving, you're also using finger angle to pull away from what you want to keep. So by me pushing the hair forward, it's dropping off towards the back. That is round. The pivoting just makes the haircut so much more fluid because everything is attached to each other. So now moving this into the back, continuing in the same manner, just pivot all the way around. The only issue with this haircut is staying clean. So forward into that previous. Remember, I don't elevate below the natural round of the head, which is the parietal. I keep it above so that I can keep it concave. Only using my previous as a guide. So that's what I mean by trying to stay clean with the haircut, is organized. Same thing, forward into the previous. So I'm traveling around with this, I'm pivoting as well, or I'm pirouetting. What's up?
And to add on to like that, why aren't you standing in front of the model? Like, why are you pivoting?
Why aren't I standing in the front? If I stand in the front, I might pull the hair too far towards me. So I'm choosing to work the weight out of the haircut, so fingertips to knuckles. I don't want my fingertips to be my outline, because I might cut that shorter. Layering to removal of weight. So I'd rather remove the weight, not add to it. Good questions, guys. Keep them coming.
Ooh, something in Portuguese.
Hello, Portugal. Or Brazil.
It's Brazil, I think.
Yeah, cool. Obrigado.
You know more than me.
Thank you, I think.
Oh.
You know why I know that?
Why?
Freddie Mercury. When he was singing to the crowd and he's all, obrigado. So continue all around. Come over here, me. You'll see it better.
Mm-hmm.
I'm almost finished. Got a couple more sections.
Oh, do you know any Portuguese educators? Is what they're kind of asking.
I don't really know. Not that I can think of off my head right now. But maybe somebody else does that's on there.
You were right, it does mean thank you.
When I was in high school here in San Diego, I did 2 years of high school. My friends were from Brazil because the construction company that was building a nearby freeway was from Brazil. So I had a ton of Brazilian friends in high school.
Have you thought of bringing your talent to Brazil?
I'd love to go to Brazil. I've always loved Brazil. I was a huge Ayrton Senna fan when I was a kid, Formula One, so. And obviously the Brazil football, soccer team, legendary.
If someone has a heavy side part, would you do these round layers differently?
Yeah, you're gonna have to start adjusting to when you work with a side part. Obviously you may have seen my side parting tutorial with the triangular shape. But round is a little trickier than that because it's working off the front being shorter and the back being longer, whereas triangular is the opposite. A lot of the cases you have to go shorter on one side than the other, so you're going to have to use a completely different over direction. Some people just tend to work with the center and then work the difference afterwards.
What's your name for this model haircut?
The name for this is round concave layers.
And
This side is triangular concave layers.
they also want you to go to Argentina.
Oh, I'd love to go there too, Buenos Aires. So when all this is done, if you want to bring me there, I'm available. So, let's do a little recap before we sign off. What we've got is we've got two forms of layering. We've got a round concave layer on this side. So that means it's much heavier in the back, lighter in the front. And then on this side, we've got a triangular concave layer. So, two different balances of weight, two different techniques. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Obviously, that leaves us some more hair to cut, so we'll be back tomorrow with more hair. Yeah.
Where can they buy the videos from for JPMS?
Oh, I don't know. I think they're for sale, so you can get my videos if you go to my website. You don't even need to get the Paul Mitchell one.
KDF.
KDF. And we have massively discounted all the videos during this time, so you guys could, take more advantage of it and cut hair at home and learn a bunch of stuff. You can find that on my Instagram. There's a post there with all the codes and all that kind of stuff. But we'll be back tomorrow. We'll be doing some more tutorials. Let me know what you want me to do. Maybe we'll do requests. Somebody asked me to do a façon. Probably not going to do a façon. I pretty much love cutting women's hair. It's been many years since I've cut men's hair solely. I think there's a whole bunch of barbers that are way better than I am at that kind of stuff.
We have another question that is, who cuts your hair?
My hair doesn't get cut. It's been growing for a long time. I did have one trim that was from Kelly, who works with me. Kelly does hair. So guys, thanks again for joining us. I'll post these tomorrow on my Instagram TV, but you'll be able to see these live for the next 24 hours. And I'll probably just blow dry this now and then I'll show you what it looks like afterwards. So thanks for joining us and we'll see you next time. Thanks, me.